of them is 120,000 kilometers of fiber. Another one is to have 1 gigabyte of data by 2025 at a maximum of 390 naira. Another of the milestones that we are meant to have, I'm trying to remember now. Okay, we have a couple of milestones that we are meant to actually meet. And this department works with the industry, works with all the relevant stakeholders to ensure that these milestones that we have are actually achieved under the broadband plan. At the same time, under the NDEPS, Pillar 3, which is solid infrastructure, is the focus, which is about connectivity, broadband connections, whether it's wire, whether it's wireless, or whether it's satellite. And this, under this department, we have the Infraco project, which I'm sure many of us know, which is about NCC licensing 7 companies to deliver regional fiber networks across Nigeria. And this part of our work is something that is currently ongoing. We work with them, we monitor them, and we relate with them. At the same time, we ensure that if there are any issues, we have relevant stakeholder meetings, critical stakeholders, to understand whatever challenges are actually happening there and try to mitigate it. That is for the broadband, and we're doing a lot of work in that area. At the same time, we are pleased to also note about the Starlinks, the SpaceX. Of course, we all know about that, you know, that has now been launched, and through that we have more access and deep coverage of, you know, data across Nigeria. Then in the digital entrepreneurship and innovation, what have we done? Currently, we are looking at working with campuses, university students, because, you know, if you do not have innovation, you don't have entrepreneurship, you cannot have digital economy. This is where the crux really of the work is done. And this is where we begin to build the capacities of Nigerians, especially the youth. This is where we work with tech hubs, we work with startups. We have forums where we gather these people. We have the startups who have made it, success stories. And they begin to teach these other Nigerian youth the process, the how-tos on how to achieve this. We bring all the relevant people that you need, the innovation hubs, so they can train our youth. You know, at the same time, we work with students in universities to build their capacities. We work with campuses, we work with NYC students, because if we can develop the entrepreneurship capacities, then we can actually do something great. And for digital skills, I know other people have to speak. It's about ubiquitous training. We train them, the young ones, from the primary school to the secondary schools, to the NYSC students, to the university students, to the women. If we can bring everybody on board, and we are currently working on this. So are we meeting our objectives? Yes. Is there a long way to go? Absolutely. Because it takes a lot, it takes a village to achieve this. And we are currently doing our best. Thank you.
Thank you very much. She spoke also about broadband. We have a broadband policy, and you can access it through our website. You will be able to see what capacity that is available up to 2025, and how much we expect even the services that we access to be from today till then. And of course, from all indications, we are doing quite very much above average in terms of access, how much you pay to enjoy broadband services in Nigeria today. On that note, let me come to the head of Spectrum Administration, who is doing a lot of job. A lot of you must have heard about 5G auction and the amount that it attracts to the federal government. This young man here is the head of Spectrum Administration that does it all. And let me ask you, Abraham, the digital economy cannot exist without infrastructure. How can you assess the infrastructure availability and the requirements for the future of digital economy?
Thank you, DPA. You're quite correct. Digital economy cannot exist without infrastructure. And globally, infrastructure is the bedrock, and I'm happy Frida mentioned it, and as part of that triangle. That's very, very apt. Now, I would like to touch on something that helps us to see that as a country, we can take advantage of something where there is nothing. What I mean is, when we compare our economy, our country, to developing or to developed countries, we see that we lack infrastructures. But I must say that technological advancement has made it very easy for us to jump. Many of us will recall that sometimes ago in Nigeria, when we're talking about telephone services, we're nowhere to be found. Basically because everything was on wire, and we don't have that infrastructure. Well, boom, before you know it, wireless technology made it very easy for us to be able to achieve exactly the same thing or even more that we're not able to do. So from about 500,000 lines, we jumped to where we are today within a short period, over 200 million lines. So now, talking about this infrastructure, the infrastructure you need for digital economy is basically whatever enables you to do adequate broadband. And thankfully, we don't need to dig too much roads to be able to achieve it. Infrastructure can be looked at from three main directions: the terrestrial and the space, as well as the wireline. The terrestrial and the wireline is basically more or less saying the same thing. But why you have to dig roads, to lay fiber cables, and do all that, when it comes to wireless, you know that you don't need to do all that before you deploy wireless. So it means that at least we are an inch further by being able to deploy wireless infrastructures without having to go back to where others have left us behind several years back. So we're able to use wireless connectivity to move ahead. And I must say, in this area, as a country and as a commission, we are doing our best, because I can say with all boldness that in the entire African continent, Nigeria happens to take the lead in making available wireless resources for deployment of broadband. I tell you why. That some of the spectrum bands that has been made available in Nigeria, that most African countries are yet unable to do it. And the reason is that we ensure that we have proper policies that will enable us deploy these infrastructures and these resources and make them available. Then, we talk about the space. So we're doing so well already terrestrially. We talk about space. As we are aware, somebody was talking recently. When you talk about space, you talk about satellites, we talk about high altitude platform stations and a couple of them. Then somebody was wondering, satellite has always been existing for years before now. So in what way can we now take advantage of satellite deployment and ensure that we're able to achieve the goals of digital economy? So happily, the same way that we're able to move from not staying behind those developed countries that already have wired lines, technology made it easy for us to be able to get to where we are today without having to continue to stay behind. Satellite industry has also made that possible. Recently, you will hear about what is called high-throughput satellite deliveries. These high-throughput satellites gives you that leverage to deploy broadband, high-speed broadband, that ordinarily would not have been possible before now. I'm sure most of us here, a few of us might have started enjoying the SpaceX satellites. This satellite gives you as much as bandwidth that you need to really drive a true digital economy. I will not talk too much about that for now, but just to directly answer your question, Ruben, I would like to say that Nigeria has really taken the forefront of making sure that resources are available. We engage in International Telecommunication Union activities to see ahead where technology is going, what infrastructures are we going to need, and how soon can we make it available. And I will repeat it again, that in the continent of Africa, Nigeria has done so well in making available these resources and infrastructures.
Thank you very much. Can we give a round of applause to Nigeria, at least for leading the pack in Africa? But after that, we talk about how does this come home when we are dependent on all this infrastructure that come from foreign countries. It makes us less dependent, or more dependent, if you like. So, and we said that we are developing indigenous content. I want to ask Ronke, what are the roles of NODITS in ensuring that we, take part not just in consumption, but also in producing what we consume, and of course, enlarging the scope of our skills that will partake in delivering these technologies?
Thank you, sir. Hello, everybody. So I'm going to start off with an icebreaker. With a show of hands, how many of you own or have used a mobile phone before, smartphone or a tablet? Please, just raise your hand if you've used. Fantastic, I see. So don't be shy. How many of you own or have used an Android phone before? So you said all of you. iPhone? Would you use a Ronke phone? If a Ronke phone is launched today, fantastic. So, yes. So fantastic, that's the whole idea. Thank you for your responses. So the Nigerian Communications Commission, in furtherance to these achievements my bosses have discussed already, in providing infrastructure, in ensuring that we have an enabling environment to drive the digital attainment of digital economy, thought it wise that there was need to establish an office to look inwards, to drive and promote innovation inwards, that's inwards with regards to Nigerians. So an office was established, more like a department was established. It's called the Nigerian Office for Developing the Indigenous Telecom Sector. And this office was established July 2021. What is this office meant to do? It's meant to look at 4 things in the telecoms value chain. When we say indigenous, most times when we say local content, Nigerians have a way of frowning at locally made goods. When I did ask how many people use Android, iPhone, our hands were up. When I asked who would use a Ronke phone, maybe the handsome gentleman there, the dashing lady with the blonde hair did respond, but the response was not cut across. So in order to drive this mandate of we should produce what we eat, and we should eat what we produce, and not only eating, we should be able to export. Recall that Madam Frida did say that out of the 7 unicorns in Africa, 5 are from Nigeria. And also, we thought, how do we do this? In the telecoms value chain, there are different segments. So our focus is on 4 areas. Manufacturing. When we say manufacturing, is it possible for us to manufacture phones in Nigeria instead of us always importing? Instead of us always looking for foreign exchange to go and import phones. If we cannot import phones, is it possible for us to manufacture chargers? Is it possible for us to manufacture batteries? We call it Palasa phones. But those batteries, I see youths around the house. Just think about it. So we also looked at it. Is it possible to manufacture SIM in Nigeria? Before the establishment of NDEPS, SIM card was actually imported. So one of the things we did do when we got in was to identify, do we have the capacity to manufacture SIM in Nigeria? Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We did identify that we can manufacture SIM in Nigeria. And a year after NDEPS was established, there was a federal policy or statement that importation of whole body SIM has been banned. What do you mean by whole body SIM? You know, when you look at your SIM, you have the plastic, you have the microchip, that thing that is golden. The microchip, yes, we know it's a globally scarce resource, but we can source. But the remaining part of that card, can we manufacture in Nigeria? Yes. And I can tell you that since August last year, the SIM card manufacturers have manufactured over 100 million SIM in Nigeria. What does that mean? It means that there are more jobs, there's more capacity, and Nigeria can actually export SIM to other nations. So we also look at, under manufacturing, what else can we manufacture? Can we manufacture phones? We are currently working in line with and collaborating with some other government agencies, customs, Standard Organization of Nigeria, ITF, Ministry of Trade, to see how we can bring about locally manufactured phones in Nigeria or devices in Nigeria. We're also looking at software, locally grown software. How do we encourage and develop the innovations with regards to software in Nigeria? NDEPS would also help to facilitate this. We look at people. We've talked about talent, but for people, we are not looking at degrees. That's the truth. If you have a degree, fine. But if you have a skill, you may go to school and have BSc in chemistry, but you're very skilled with AI, or you're skilled in manufacturing a particular, maybe a drone, or coming up with various innovations. This is what we want to promote. And we're not only promoting you, we know that it's quite difficult to access some things, especially when it comes to policy waivers, to access funding, or to access incentives that federal government or private entities have there. NDEPS would help you bridge that gap. Then finally, we also have research and development. We want to encourage Nigerians to think Nigerian. There's nobody that will come into this country to really identify what it is that we are lacking. But because we are the consumers, you can easily think, what app can I come up with? What software can I come up with? What technology can I come up with to address issues? And bear in mind, NCC is constantly making sure that infrastructure is robust for you to expand your innovative ideas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, give her a round of applause if you can. Because we, apart from talking about what we can do indigenously, we're also thinking about the confidence of the average person who wants to access the cyberspace or digital systems in the digital economy. How are we able to close our eyes and go on doing a transaction without fear of any molestation or fraud? So I ask Yisa, does the Commission take any steps to see how we can build confidence in the users of the digital economy products and services? Because that's very important, because if people have no confidence, if people are afraid of what may happen the next time they go on the space or engage using platforms, they will not be able to attend to it. So do we have any any activity at all in the side of building confidence on the users?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So on the part of the Commission, what we do to build confidence, firstly, is to collaborate with other stakeholders. And some of those stakeholders are government, some are civil society, and some are, of course, service providers and law enforcement. So as regards law enforcement, the Commission collaborates with the Office of National Security Advisor to tackle any form of cyber crimes and all, because ONSA is in charge of cybersecurity for the country. So all other stakeholders are expected to work with them to handle any cybersecurity issues. We also collaborate with other platforms, such as the Nigerian Internet Governance Forum, where it's a platform people are able to come and express their views as regards the use of the internet and the challenges they have with security or access. And we collaborate with government again there, and civil society, and also with other stakeholders, as long as you're a user of the internet, to bring forward what issues you have and then who can tackle such issues. And the recommendations are sent to the organization in charge to implement. We also have the establishment of the NCC's Computer Security Incident Response Team, which works directly with Office of National Security Advisors, Computer Emergency Response Team, and they are in charge of monitoring and managing incidents in the country. They are also expected to work alongside other sector CSIRTs, that's the Computer Security Incident Response Teams, to handle any form of incidents in the nation. We also have collaboration with other international organizations such as West Africa Internet Governance Forum, Africa, and also the Global Internet Governance Forum. We also have the ICANN, that's Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, who work hard to ensure that the internet is actually a safer place for everyone to use and everyone can benefit from the use of the internet. Lastly, we also have the part of awareness, because no matter the amount of policies you put in place or the technical measures, service providers put, there's a part of the user to be aware of tricks that they can come across. For example, these social engineering tricks that people always face. So we have the part of awareness, especially on the month of October, which is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, where we share information as regards, child online protection, as regards the Cybercrime Act and other areas, just educating Nigerians on what they need to do. Lastly, we have in process the IPv6 deployment. Right now, Nigeria uses IPv4. I don't want to go into too much details about that, but by the time we're able to have the IPv6, it helps the law enforcement to also track down online predators easily. Because right now, if there's a crime committed, there's a challenge that one IPv4 block can show you about 64 people, and you'll be wondering, okay, which of these 64 has committed the crime? But when it comes to IPv6, you can narrow it down to know exactly who committed the crime, and law enforcement have their job made easier. So that is currently in the pipeline at the moment. Those are some of the initiatives the Commission is doing at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, you can applaud her. Yes, you can applaud her. Thank you. Thank you. Abraham, you talked about SpaceLink and how satellite technology has become, competitive with other ways of service delivery. And we remember that a new company was licensed to provide services, broadband services based on satellite. Can you give us some insight? Because we understand that in satellite technology, most of the satellite resident at the geostationary orbit, but this one, it could be satellite hanging somewhere and delivering these services simultaneously. So can you enlighten us about it and how this service, configures into today's digital economy and 5G platforms and related services?
Thank you, Ruben, for that opportunity to explain this as well. Like I tried to explain earlier on, satellite has always been existing. But most time, what we hear about satellite is that it's too expensive and that it does not carry, the satellite capacity is limited. But technology has really helped us out. the technology that is deployed now, most of them are on what is called low Earth orbit. So it's able to beam its footprints to cover an entire area at a very high capacity. The SpaceX license that was issued in Nigeria enables us to get as much as from 50 Mbps to 300 Mbps user experience at a go. So imagine that you get 300 megabits per second in your location. You can do virtually everything. And digital economy depends on availability of broadband. So we are as good as there. Just within a short time that SpaceX got to Nigeria, I'm sorry I'm mentioning SpaceX. It's not only SpaceX that has this technology. There are a lot of other high throughput satellite providers, and many have even been licensed in Nigeria as we speak. But the advantage and the benefit is that wherever you are, at any point, you can get high broadband delivery in your home. Recently, there have been posts by people from remote areas, some in Niger State, in different locations. At the same time across the country, you can get these services. So because it's able to give you high bandwidth, it makes it very easy for you to integrate to other broadband solutions. Yes, the beauty about 5G and other modern technologies is that your speed is fast, the capacity is huge, the throughput is high, so you can do virtually everything on it. So the high throughput satellite providers like SpaceX and the others have come to our rescue in Africa. Rescue in the sense that we should have been struggling with how to deploy these infrastructures. It's up there in the sky. Vandalization cannot even access it. That's the beauty of it. So at almost the same time, everybody in Nigeria can have good broadband without stress.
Thank you very much for that. Please, can you applaud him? Yes, it's been said that micro, medium, small enterprises, micro, small, medium enterprises, startups, digital entrepreneurs, even the Gen Zs, are the ones that have raised the profile of digital economy in terms of activities, in terms of even generation of revenues, in terms of raising the stake of digital economy aspiration. I wanted to know from Frida, what are those items that the digital economy department is, or what are those items they are engaged in to ensure that these levels of partnerships or engagements, or those who are now driving digital economy, as it were, are being promoted? How are we, coalescing and making those services come together to form a unified, robust focus?
Okay, thank you once again, Mr. Moka. I will say that, first of all, the Commission works under the triple helix model of innovation. And I think it's very important we understand why that is important. Every single thing in society hinges between this tri-party relationship. Government on the one hand, of which NCC is one, the academia on the other hand, for where all of us have come, and where our knowledge and tuition comes from, and finally, the industry, which is now, let's take the MSMEs. When we all work together, this correlation leads to a great output. And that is what we are all about. How is NCC, or what role do these sets of people play? I said earlier that without digital innovation and entrepreneurship, we have nothing. We cannot, as Ronke has said, keep going and looking for solutions out there. The solution of Africa and the solution of Nigeria lies to a large extent with you and I. And can I just say, I like to use my old age as a 50-something-year-old woman and say with you, the younger ones. And that is true. That reminds me, I'll go back to the 5. I think I forgot one. That was OPay, Flutterwave, Andela, Jumia, and InterSwitch. Yesterday, actually, I was Googling because I remembered I read something and I wanted to find out. Wikima RMS Technologies, just yesterday became one of the 10 runner-ups for the Harvard Business School Startup Awards. There is a lot going on. And the solutions that Nigeria needs lies in the hands of Nigerian youth, because we are now in a knowledge economy. We all know that oil is on the end. Even if it's there, the world is going to green technology. So we're not going to rely on oil and gas. It is the knowledge economy. And Nigerians are really at the forefront, even at the global level. As NCC, we recognize this value. We are a regulator. And as a result, the commission cannot come to you and say, here, take money. That's not how it works. Do you understand? But we do certain things to enhance your participation in the national digital economy. One of the things we do, and I mentioned this collaborative exercise in NCC, and Mr. Moka had earlier said, the achievement of the digital economy cuts across practically all the departments. If you go through the eight pillars of the NDEPS, I promise you, I can just go through and even tell you 1 to 8, the different departments involved in each. And in everything my department, digital economy, does, we don't work alone. So now, one of the ways I want to bring up is something Ronke mentioned, research. Our research department, and even we do the same, but let me start with research, hackathons. There are solutions, ideas that you have. And we have events, different events. One of them is ideating development, where you come with just your idea and you are able to pitch. Because you look at our agricultural sector, why don't we? In agric, there can be 6,000 solutions that are required. In health, maybe it's another 4,000. In aviation, in everything, it's about having an idea of a problem and how to solve it. And then we then have hackathons, where you bring about this idea and you can develop a small idea, a small prototype on achieving it. And the research department brings you on board. And then when, let's hope you come out 1 to 3rd, then they hand you over to NDEPS. And the reason why NDEPS is very relevant is the fact that everything we are talking about here is still Pillar 8, indigenous content, indigenous capacity development.
Thank you.
Oh, gosh.
Thank you. I was getting a signal from the organizers that we have 10 minutes left, but I'm pleading with the organizers because we started 10 minutes late, so we are going to probably add the 10 minutes.
Can I just quickly finish?
Yes, so quickly finish.
Okay, so how does digital economy department come into play? Like I was saying earlier, what we do is that we bring a gathering of tech hubs, especially innovation hubs, the ones that have the capacity to take you from an idea onto a solution. They are the ones that have lawyers, they have business development, they have the angel investors, the venture capitalists that train you on how to develop your idea. So we bring these innovation hubs, and by God's grace this year we'll do it also regionally. Then we bring the startups from each region that have developed solutions in different areas. Then we bring you the Nigerian youth, either the tech youth, university youth, NYSC, and you come and you hear and you learn how ideas are developed, how we go from ideas into solutions. And through that way, we, from the perspective of digital economy and government, are able to put like a new zest and energy in you, and you can then go and have collaborative discussions with these people and know how to carry on and become the next global unicorns for Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I go to Ronke straight ahead because I know there are things, a lot to discuss with collaborations. Collaborations is very important in digital technology development. And also, do we have tangible products that we can boast of? I know you mentioned about SIM card. Have we tangible products out of collaborations, and we have significant collaborations?
All right, thank you very much. Let me tee off from where Madam Frida's talked, from innovation to solutions, but how do you scale? Sometimes that's the challenge. How do you access funds? I don't know if we have innovators or startups in the house. Can you? So do you have challenges regarding accessing funds, financing? Because most of the regular structure, the government structure or the financial service providers do not understand what you're doing. This is why NCC is promoting the need to promote you and to explain or give you a platform where this traditional structure will understand you. They usually they don't understand you're coming up with something, what's an app, really. The financial service providers want you to conform to a model that is traditional. I see you nod. That means you agree with me. Fantastic. So this is what we are doing. We are collaborating with everybody. One of the collaborative efforts we've done was we held the first Nigerian Telecoms Indigenous Content Expo. It was held here in Lagos Landmark, this venue, August 2022. And what did we do? We had a collaboration of government agencies, service providers, innovators, financial service providers as well. So there can be a handshake and we could deliberate. A lot of things came out from there. 2 out of the innovators that went through the process Madam Frida had earlier highlighted are currently being showcased in Riyadh now. The Commission projected them and they were selected for possible international capital seed funding. So what else have we also done? I'm sure you all know about Coleman cables. Coleman. So, yeah. So following the establishment of NODIT, please remember that NODIT is established by NCC to drive indigenous content. So it's NCC's platform for driving indigenous content. Coleman Cables was able to come up with the manufacturing of fiber optic cables in Nigeria. It's the first fiber optic cable in Nigeria. So you can imagine what that means. Aside job creation, it shows that we have capacity and it's also projecting Nigeria forward. We also have engagement with MDAs. One of the, well, let me mention 2. One, NDA in particular, NPIC, yeah, that's Nigerian Investment and NIPC, yeah, Promotion and Investment Council, has identified telecoms as one of the key areas or sectors that would benefit from the Pioneer Status Initiative Bill or incentive, so to speak. So we are working on them with them to see how innovators, digital service providers, indigenous ones, can come in to benefit from this. What do we mean by indigenous? You must have your company fully registered in Nigeria. You must be resident in Nigeria. You must have 51% equity Nigerian. That's what we mean. Then we also have collaboration handshake with CBN is still ongoing, especially with regards to access to Forex. Then we're also aware that CBN has a lot of intervention funds for different sectors. But if we see this sector as one of the focal pillars, the drivers of the economy, so to speak, there's need for them to provide access funding. So who can access the funds? If you come through the commission and you qualify, the commission can help you to access such funds. Then when it comes to collaboration, again, we have issues with patents and registry of products. We realized when we're speaking and engaging with a lot of innovators, they did say there are so many. We have Ministry of Trade and Investment, you have NOTAB, you have Standards Organization of Nigeria. Who in particular should I go to? So this is what we try to help you address, so you're not confused. Finally, we are coming up with a portal. This portal will help you either authenticate the authenticity of a startup, indigenous startup, or a product. It also will showcase whatever it is that you have produced or manufactured, and it will also show the possibilities of you getting access to whatever government interventions we have. So the Commission is working very hard to ensuring that this group of people, indigenous, made in Nigeria for Nigeria by Nigeria to the world, survives.
Thank you very much. Can you give a round of applause? Yes, Yisa is leading the team on child online protection, and I don't want us to leave this stage without talking about child online protection in the march towards the digital economy. Little boys and girls can do marvelous things with their systems and platforms. So as it brings new ways of doing things, it also comes with a lot of issues. So I want to ask Lisa, what does NCC do with approaching the issue of child online protection? And also, after that, you mentioned that, let's see what you are talking about, CSIRT, Computer Incident Response Team, that normally generates a lot of information and advisories to the industry.
Thank you. So, you know, the pandemic brought about the fact that most of our children needed to go online, and it really threw a lot of parents and guardians off guard, because a lot of them were not, ready to put their children online. So in this vein, ITU released 2020 guidelines on child online protection, and so all stakeholders globally were expected to follow those guidelines and localize it to suit their own their own climate. So we had a discussion with children online in 2020 and explained to them the need for this, because they were also expected to carry them along, not just to make guidelines without their input. So they gave us input, and then we localized the child online protection document. It actually comes in 3 different books, one for children below 8, another one for below 18, and another one for teachers to be able to guide the children. So those books have been localized, and we also went a bit further to translate into Pidgin, Yoruba, Hausa, and Igbo, and all those books can be found on the Commission's website. We also, I think in that year, 2020, there was also a document, we call it Keeping the Children Safe Online, Advice for Parents and Caregivers. This document helps parents to have an idea of the kind of thing you need to help your children with. Most parents just assume, you just give your child a device and they should know what to do. Parents and guardians have their parts to play, so that document helps them to understand the things they need to do, not just technically, but also a conversation they must have with the children, because our children, whether we like it or not, are more savvy internet-wise than most of the parents. So once they have that conversation, the children are able to trust them to, speak up in case they have any challenges or if they are victims of any sort of cybercrime event online. And then last year, the Honorable Minister came up, inaugurated a committee of about 7 different organizations, government, civil society, to come up with a draft policy document, and this is a document that was approved about 2 weeks ago. It's called the National Child Online Protection Policy and Strategy. This document is supposed to speak to industry, to academia, to awareness organizations, to government. Every stakeholder has their own part to play. So now that the document has been approved, we're waiting to know the next step, because the next step should be that all stakeholders will come together, agree what needs to be done next, and everyone goes to implement. So if your side is awareness, you do that. If the technical community needs to put in more safeguards in place, all that is supposed to be done as part of implementation of this policy. And then we also have this program which we call Parenting 101 for Digital Citizens. We started it off with a few people in the commission to get a feedback before we take it out. That program is just to help parents understand some of the risks their children can face online, whether psychologically or otherwise, and also to help them understand the kind of parental controls they need to put in place for their children, whether on websites or on devices. And so that is ongoing. We're intending that later in the year we're going to take it out and more people have access to this. And I think that's it for now.
All right, thank you very much. With your permission, we are going to go to the audience to ask some questions. Yes, somebody is here, please. Introduce your name, maybe the organization you represent, and then ask. Yes. We can see. Put it on.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stella Maris from the News Agency of Nigeria. So my question is directed to Runke. Actually, I became very interested in your own indigenous contents. When you mentioned, although this is my first time of hearing it, I don't know about others, that we have produced 100,000 or 100 million SIMs. So please, I would like you to give us how many companies how many of the telcos have patronized the SIM, number one. Number two, since when has this started? And then, what is your intention? Do you hope to continue and do you hope to export? And do you think we have the capacity to be able to, because if I can remember clearly, from your own, we have about 200 million subscribers, am I right? Yeah. So, more than that, right? So, how are we going to cope with such? Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Stella Maris. I'm sure your colleagues were here last year, August 1st to 2nd, 2022. At the same venue, we had an event called the Nigerian Telecoms Indigenous Content Expo, NTICE 2022. It was at that event that the Honorable Minister made that statement that forthwith there's a ban on the importation of whole body SIM. Remember, I did say whole body. Whole body means you cannot import already manufactured SIM. Prior to that, like I did also say that NODIT was established, the Commission established this office called NODIT, July 2021. And between July 2021 and August 2022, we did a lot of fact-finding, stakeholder engagement, and one of our pillars to focus on is manufacturing. So in the course of going out and fact-finding, we looked at what are the low-hanging fruits, what are the issues in the telecoms value chain that can be addressed inside, that's internally in Nigeria. And one of the things we realized we could manufacture is SIM. I don't know if you can cast your mind back like 17 years ago, we used to import recharge cards. I don't know if you remember the recharge cards. They were like debit card now, and you have to scratch before. Then gradually from that, it became smaller. The Commission did license people to manufacture recharge card in Nigeria. And with innovation, it became vouchers now. So with SIM, why should federal government of Nigeria spend so much money importing when we can do it here? So that has been taken care of. We've identified, I think we have like 7 or 8 SIM manufacturing companies, but we have 4 that are fully operational, yes. And between August 2022 And, well, this is January. That means January, we've had reports, to show that over 100 million SIMs were ordered for by the operators. Remember, we have various operators in Nigeria. So they have been able to do that. And what else was I going to say in addition to that? So it also means that this SIM can also be exported. Remember, we have AFICTA. So Nigeria will not only be importing, we can export. Nigeria can serve as the manufacturer of SIM for West Africa zone. And this is what we are trying to achieve with digital economy. Thank you.
The gentleman over.
Hello. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tosin. I work at Tekaba as a senior sales and partnership manager. Thanks for this panel. So you've talked about three things: infrastructure, funding, collaboration. Now, so I have a question. By virtue of the work I do, we deal with tech companies. We are the largest tech media on the African continent at the moment. So one major thing I've realized over time is that the issue of broadband, it's a recurring conversation. I mean, for example, let me use mine as an example. Our company runs an hybrid system. I mean, we have staff that are even outside Lagos. So what this means is that you have to work from where you are. And a major challenge that we've experienced over time, and I think I'm speaking for a lot of tech companies in Lagos, is broadband. One person, you have Airtel SIM, Glo SIM, MTN SIM, Entel, you have Fiber One, you have Optic. Now, everybody's paying for Starlink. Now, the question I keep asking that is that, I understand that we have a lot of these big players there. But what is NCC doing to encourage small local players? People that don't need to have the kind of money that MTN has to invest. Because you know why? Our tech sector is growing, and our guys are investing in a lot of business. Look at companies like Flutterwave, Paystack, Money, Fincra. The people that established this business, some of them, they were like 23, 24 when they started. What helped them was that they were able to get investment. I know that you've talked about funding, but the question there is something you did not talk about that I know. A major problem in the telecom sector is regulation. The sector is heavily regulated. NCC is there, Ministry of Communication is there. You are dealing with a lot of bodies. The question is simple. What is NCC doing to encourage small investors in the sector? And what is NCC doing to bring down the barrier of entry into that sector? I mean, so let's say we got like $5 million investment, for example. We don't need to have as many infrastructure as Globacom or MTN has, but even if for us to provide broadband, because you see, no matter the plan that you have, I'm interested that you're actually talking about this, and I'm going to see Ruben after this meeting so that I can see a lot of collaboration between Tekaba and NCC. But the question there is, no matter the effort that you're making, if a lot of this broadband issue is not sorted, it will affect us economically. And let me give you an example, just a minute. A lot of our engineers, they are living in Nigeria. One of the major reasons they are living is the broadband. So the question still remains, what are you doing to reduce the barrier of entry for investors in that sector? Thank you.
Well, this is double barrel or triple barrel. So I don't know who will answer what. Abraham, do you have any comment to make on this?
His
in what
question
any
is,
aspect?
when he says entry barrier, in terms of what? Because we are talking about infrastructure. Did you come to get a license to deploy infrastructure and you could not get it? There are a lot of licenses that enables you to deploy infrastructure in Nigeria. Basically, if you have an ISP license, it's just 500,000 naira. If you want to set up a business of providing internet, 500,000 naira. And with innovation, like I mentioned, it's not everybody that might need 300 Mbps that a satellite, high throughput satellite is providing. But what can you do with it? With innovation, you can take this 300 Mbps. Most of us in our houses, we have fibers laid to our houses. At best, you can get 20 Mbps. That means the fiber provider is really doing well. But somebody is providing you 200 Mbps, and you have a license that enables you to provide internet service with only 500,000 naira to cover the whole country. I think we should applaud the Commission for making such a license available at such a reduced price. So if you get it and somebody provides you 300 Mbps, then you should be thinking, in what innovative way can I take these 300 Mbps and even compete with fiber providers that is charging you 20,000 naira per month to give you 20 Mbps? You have more than 10 times that capacity. You can do a lot with it. So I think I will suggest that we should think inward and look at more innovative ways as upcoming or small players. We don't need to be the Globalcom or the MTN to do all that. So let's be more innovative.
Yeah, Freda, I think another aspect you can address.
Okay. Thank you very much. We have taken a lot of time to explain to you the efforts of the Commission towards making rampant and ubiquitous broadband infrastructure across the nation, both through the infracos that we are hoping to lay fiber across the nation, and also the licensing of Starlinks, and even the 5G. These are the actions we are doing to make broadband connectivity cheaper. One of the things you can do is that if you all feel that you need a lot of bandwidth, then you can take like Starlinks, and then you converge the people in the same area, at least in that town. If there are 6 or 7 of you, you don't have to go and stay in your offices. Stay together and share those expensive resources. At the same time, you can work under a tech hub. You go to these innovation hubs that have already provided the necessary bandwidth you need and work there. While it's a process, NCC is already also doing ICT packs going forward. I think you must learn to work within. And while we are also trying to rapidly increase broadband connectivity, when it's there, it will be much cheaper and it will be available everywhere.
Thank you. Ronke, you have something to mention briefly?
Yes,
10 seconds.
About how should NCC encourage small investors? Aside the fact that the issue of reducing barrier of entry has been addressed, there are processes, but to encourage small investors, that is why NCC established NODITS. I'm sure we can take it offline. Then I'm sure you're aware of the Nigerian Startup Act. Yes. So, and there are clear definitions to who can access what and all of this. These things were not done in isolation. And please recall, when the moderator did start, he said the first pillar of the digital economy is developmental regulation. That's co-creation, collaborating. That is what we have done with the Nigerian Startup Act. Thank you.
Thank you very much. They say our time is up. A lady started it, and another lady has been frantically waving at me. I don't know how. I don't refuse women what they need around me. So please, can you give her the microphone to ask her question?
Thank you very much. I heard something from one of the speakers about collaborating with the Office of the National Security Advisor. Hello, madam. I really want you to hear this. Yes, that the NCC collaborates with the Office of the National Security Advisor. I don't know, do you at any point in time enter agreements, contractual agreements with the NSA to protect the privacy of Nigerians? Because privacy is important, and then data protection, and then of course human rights. So we are worried because we know what the Office of the NSA has been able to achieve in time past. So I'm just wondering, what does NCC do to protect us? My name is Mojirayo Ogulano Nkanga. Please, you should stay back the next session.
Thank you for the advert. Okay, madam.
All right. So as regards Office of National Security Advisor, all government agencies do not need to have a contractual agreement, because that agreement has been highlighted in the Cyber Crimes Act 2015, the National Cybersecurity Policy and Strategy 2021. Now, as regards the Data Protection Act, if you know that there is now a borough that is in charge of that, and if I'm not mistaken, there's a draft bill that was released 2 weeks ago. So government is aware that ONSA cannot just come and invade people's privacy, and that's why they're putting those mechanisms in place. I believe very soon more of the implementation will be in place, and I know NITDA is already part of the people who are monitoring those as regards data protection of citizens. And that's why they now moved it out of NIDA and now have a bureau. So with time this year, I believe you're going to see more being done, but it can't just be UNSA will take over your data. No, UNSA is aware that Nigerians have their own privacy. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. Okay.
In addition to consumer, Mojirayo, you did ask what happens to the consumer protection. We have a Consumer Affairs Bureau, and we also have a Consumer Code of Practice, which stipulates that there are some conditions, especially when it comes to data privacy of their consumers, that service providers need to abide with. The Commission is always proactive, and if you have any complaints or if you notice any breach in your privacy as a consumer, please flag it off. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On that note, we thank you very seriously for coming. A little announcement. We gave out some food packs which contain water that is not the one that is officially the sponsor of water in this place. So please don't use that water within the location, because that will be breaching the leverage of those who are sponsoring and bringing water. So you can drink your water quietly later. So we thank you very much. Abraham, Isa, Frida, Ronke, on behalf of all of you, we thank you for listening. Thank you.